The book is filled with mystery and intrigue. Many have declared it to be beyond human comprehension, yet Revelation draws theologians and laymen alike to a study of its messages. Today, Destiny opens the door for you to understand the book of Revelation. Henry Feyerabend's presentation of Revelation, verse by verse, is a culmination of a lifetime of study and research. In a few moments, I'll be telling you how you can obtain this dynamic information in printed form. Now, here's Henry sharing with you Revelation, verse by verse.
A finished mystery, a haunting chant carried on the wings of dawn, 1,000 infidels converted in a day. All of this and more awaits you in today's Destiny telecast, the 7th in our series, Revelation verse by verse. Today, Destiny presents the 7 Trumpets and the Mystery of God.
Time, relentlessly slipping into eternity past, shaping the course of human lives and events on Earth, third planet of Sol. This is Destiny, a candid half-hour look at life and today's relevant issues that vitally concern you and your future.
Revelation 8 and 9 present the third historic chain in the book of Revelation. The 7 trumpets focus on the conquest of the eternal city, Rome, and its attack by the barbarian tribes. The 2nd chapter of Daniel accurately predicted world domination of 4 world powers, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. It also predicted the fall of Rome and its division into 10 kingdoms represented by the toes of the image, divisions that would later form the nations of Western Europe. When the book of Revelation was written, Rome dominated the world. The prophecy of Daniel had been fulfilled to the minutest detail up to that point. Yet people could not bring themselves to believe that Rome could ever be destroyed. Isaiah and Jeremiah had described the fall of Rome, but those predictions seemed like fantasies. How could the eternal city ever fall? Rome was so corrupt that it was impossible for her to continue. Like the empires that preceded her, she at last fell and found herself on the rubbish heap of history. Any nation that defies God and corrupts her people is doomed. Rome's division was clearly prophesied by Daniel. The prophetic symbols of the 7 trumpets show how that empire broke up. We turn to Revelation chapter 8, and in verse 6, we have these words. And the 7 angels, which had the 7 trumpets, prepared themselves to sound. The trumpet in Bible times was used to summon great gatherings, like in Leviticus 23:24, or to herald the approach of disaster or war. In this prophecy, the 7 trumpets unfold 7 great warnings. The prophet Jeremiah had said in Jeremiah chapter 4 and verse 19, I cannot hold my peace because thou hast heard, O my soul, the sound of the trumpet, the alarm of war. And in the New Testament, Paul asks us this interesting question. For if the trumpet give an uncertain sound, who shall prepare himself to the battle? 1 Corinthians 14:8. The first 4 trumpets describe the collapse of Western Rome. The next 2, the overthrow of Eastern Rome. And the 7th trumpet tells of the collapse of all human government. Every trumpet that sounded was like a hammer blow on the statue of Daniel 2. The Roman historian Ammianus Marcellinus, a man who was alive during the fall of Rome, said, While the trumpets were sounding in my ears, the tempest of a coming conflict was sweeping over our country. Without having studied the Scriptures, this author used the same illustration as did the prophet John. And now, verse 7. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the 3rd part of the trees was burned up, and all green grass was burned up. After the time of Constantine, Rome was divided into 3 parts. It was divided among Constantine's 3 sons. Constantius took over the eastern part, with Constantinople as his resident. Constantine II took over Britain, Gaul, and Spain. Constans, his 3rd son, took over Illyricum, Africa, and Italy. In this prophecy, reference is made several times to a third part of the earth. Each of these three divisions of the Roman Empire represented a third part of the then known world. The first blow that fell on Western Rome was the attack of the Goths under Alaric. He continued the attack until he broke the back of Roman power. His constant attacks were like hailstones pelting away at the statue of Daniel II. The city of Rome was surrounded in the year 410. The great theologian Jerome said, "The great and glorious sun of the world grew dim." Rome, the eternal city, was beginning to fall. Alaric came from the mountains and attacked cities and villages, burning everything that got in his way. Whole cities and villages were burned, and blood ran in the streets. Now, verse 8. And the second angel sounded, and as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood, and a third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and a third part of the ships were destroyed. The first attack came by land. The second attack came by sea. The German amphibious armies of the Vandals, under the leadership of Genseric, now attacked Rome, and they caused such havoc that to this day we refer to their kind of damage as vandalism. Genseric fell upon Rome like a great burning mountain, leaving destruction all the way from Gibraltar to the mouth of the Nile. And now the Mediterranean Sea that the Romans had referred to as Mar Nostrum, or our sea, was under the control of the enemies of Rome. The Vandals carried away the golden candlesticks that Titus had brought from the Temple of Jerusalem. Genseric's attacks, true to prophecy, were almost all by sea. In one night he destroyed 1/3 of the ships belonging to Rome in the Battle of Carthage, destroying 1,113 ships and killing more than 100,000 men. Verse 10. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon a third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. The first attack on the Roman Empire was by land, the second by sea, the third by river. The third attack came from the Huns, under the leadership of Attila, who was nicknamed the Scourge of God. While Genseric and the Vandals were attacking by sea, he came with his soldiers, called the Cowboys from the East, up the Danube River, destroying everything in his way. Attila boasted that the grass would never grow again where he had passed by. He came along the great rivers, the Rhine in Gaul and Italy, the River Po and the Danube. The most important battle was in France, or Gaul as it was called in those days, in the year 451. 300,000 men died in that battle, and it was there that Europe was separated from Asia. Attila caused such terror by his attacks that even enemies joined together to unite against him. He was finally defeated and died a sudden death. Just as suddenly as he appeared, he disappeared. He's been compared to a blazing meteor whose course was very brilliant, who would appear suddenly like a shooting star, then disappear like a star whose light was quenched in the waters. The desolating course of that meteor would be mainly on those portions of the world that abounded with springs of water and running streams. Many people would perish, and there would be wide desolation in the vicinity of those rivers and streams, as if a bitter and baleful star should fall into the waters, and death should spread over the lands adjacent to them. The Gothic historian Jordanes said that the Huns were more cruel than cruelty itself. Attila himself once said, "A star is falling before me, and the earth is shaking. I am the hammer of the world." Isn't it amazing that he would use the words of a prophecy that he had never read? Verse 12. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels, which are yet to sound. The fourth trumpet sounds, and finally western Rome falls completely. Another army from Germany came into Italy as the tribes of the Heruli, led by Odoacer, one of Attila's generals, began their attack. These woodsmen from Germany penetrated right into the heart of the Roman Empire and took the king from his throne, and Odoacer put on the crown. Now the lights of Rome began to go out. The king was referred to as the sun, the senators and consuls as the stars. First of all, the king was dethroned, as according to the prophecy, the sun went out. The senators and consuls continued to shine for a little while, and then darkness settled down upon the Queen of Nations. We might well remember that Rome was its own worst enemy. The real enemy of Rome, more than the barbarian tribes, was the immorality and the corruption that opened the way for the attack of these tribes.
Momentarily, Henry Feyerabend will continue his message on the book of Revelation. Many hours of research have gone into the preparation of this series, and now the information is available in printed form, and it's yours for the asking. Henry's notes on the book of Revelation have been published in this fine book, Revelation, verse by verse, with over 200 pages packed with vivid data to help you understand the book of Revelation like never before. As the darkness of our times deepens and fear continues to spread in our preeminently troubled age, monstrous powers are about to appear on the center stage of the times in which we live. The book of Revelation clearly identifies these powers. Who is the beast of Revelation 13? What's the significance of the number 666? Learn about the last day delusion which will sweep the world. How can you be prepared to face the troublesome times that are coming? Call now and ask for your free copy of Revelation, verse by verse. The toll-free number is 1-800-253-3000. Our operators are standing by for your call right now. And if you prefer to write, direct your request to the address appearing on the screen. And now, back to Henry Feyerabend and his comments on the book of Revelation.
The last three trumpets were more severe than the first that had already sounded. Now, because of great apostasy, Christianity would be attacked by something new. The rise of Islam, or the Muslim religion. Christians insisted on idolatry, on worshiping more than one God, and now they would have to face a religion that worshiped only one God. There is no God but Allah, and Mohammed is his prophet. Carried on the wings of dawn, this haunting chant, coming from the minarets, has aroused many a traveler to the Middle East from his slumber. Islam is a missionary religion intent on winning converts. Mohammed's first convert was his wife, Khadijah, and then came his friend, Abu Bakr, and his cousin, Ali, who married his daughter. By the time of his death, almost everyone in Arabia was a follower of his religion. Now, chapter 9, verse 1. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and unto him was given the key to the bottomless pit. The bottomless pit is a vivid description of the desert of Arabia, an uninhabited wasteland, a place of death. The star to whom the key was given aptly describes the prophet Mohammed. The key gave him success and access to the deserts of Arabia. Verse 2. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. For many years, theologians have agreed that this was an apt description of the Saracens and the Turks. From the deserts of Arabia came the Muslims like grasshoppers, tribe after tribe. They invaded the Holy Land, the Far East, the northern part of Africa, to the Atlantic, and even entered into Asia and Europe. 8 crusades were waged against them during the 11th, 12th, and 13th centuries. The doctrines of Islam spread throughout the Middle East, which had formerly been Christian. From Africa, the Arabs finally crossed Spain. After conquering Spain, they entered France. But on the way to Paris, they were finally stopped by Carlos Martel at the Battle of Tours in 732. Verse 4. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass or the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. The Mohammedans were not plunderers like the conquerors of Western Rome. When the Arabian tribes were gathered for the conquest of Syria in AD 632, Abu Bakr, who succeeded in the command after the death of Muhammad, gave the following order: When you fight the battles of the Lord, acquit yourselves like men, without turning your backs, but let not your victory be stained with the blood of women or children. Destroy no palm trees, nor burn any fields of corn. Cut down no trees, nor do any mischief to cattle, only such as you kill to eat. During Luther's Reformation, when the state wanted to stamp out the Reformation, they were attacked by the Muslims, and the government forgot the reformers and defended itself from the Turks. Did you know there would be no Protestantism today had there been no Turks? Eastern Rome was the focal point of interest under the 5th and 6th trumpets. No more descriptive prophecy can be found in the Bible. The blast of the 6th trumpet was fulfilled in the rise and progress of the Arabs. Arabia has been called the pit of the abyss because of its deserts and empty areas. And it was there that Mohammedanism arose and spread like a smoke. This faith threatened at one time to obscure the light of the gospel. The Saracenic Invasion could be described in no better language than is used here. Like a horde of locusts out of the smoke, Mohammedanism swept on. Notice verse 7. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. Their faces were as the faces of men. They wore beards. They had hair as the hair of women. Their hair was long. They had, as it were, crowns of gold. Those stately warriors wore a brilliant headdress or turban. Their teeth were as the teeth of lions. They were fearless fighters. The shapes of the locusts were like unto the horses prepared unto battle. The Arabian horse is still a synonym of quality among equestrians, while skill in horsemanship is an Arabian art. Now, verse 10. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. 5 Jewish months of 30 days would be 150 days, and using the day-year principle of Numbers 14:34 and Ezekiel 4:6, a principle followed by the Bible scholars during the Reformation, the Ottoman Empire would continue its destruction for 150 years. The destruction began on July 27, 1299, at the Battle of Baphium. Exactly 150 years later, on July 27, 1449, the last of the Greek emperors, Constantine, took the throne after seeking permission of the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. And now, verse 13. And the 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God, saying to the 6th angel, which had the trumpet, Loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay the 3rd part of men. Many scholars believe that this refers to the four leading sultanies, Aleppo, Iconium, Damascus, and Baghdad, situated in the region of the river Euphrates. Did you know that as a result of this prophecy, 1,000 infidels were converted in one day? In 1838, a theologian named Joseph Litch made an amazing prophecy based on this passage. Litch understood that the fifth trumpet began at the Battle of Baphium and lasted 150 years, ending July 27, 1449. Using the day for a year principle, he calculated that a prophetic year would represent 360 actual years, as there were 360 days in the Jewish year. A month would signify 30 years, a day 1 year, and an hour 15 days. This would give him 391 years and 15 days. Adding 391 years and 15 days to July 27, 1449, he predicted that the Turkish Empire would fall on August 11, 1840. Now that was a bold prediction, one that required great faith and prophecy. He published this prediction, and thousands watched with eager anticipation to see what would happen. Litch's views on the Ottoman question were noted in public journals, and various infidel clubs discussed his views, ridiculing the man for having the audacity to make such a claim. As a fearless champion, he declared that the future would vindicate the veracity of God's Word. When on August 11, 1840, the London Morning Herald announced, "The Sultan has been reduced to the rank of a puppet," the news quickly flashed to the unbelieving world. The prophecy that Litch had so boldly proclaimed was fulfilled, and many atheists became Christians overnight. Multitudes were convinced of the correctness of the principles of interpretation used by Litch. Within a few months, Litch received letters from more than 1,000 prominent infidels, some of them leaders of infidel clubs, in which they had stated that they had given up the battle against the Bible and had accepted it as God's revelation to man. One letter said, "We have said that the expositors of prophecy quote from the musty pages of history to substantiate their claims of prophetic fulfillments. But in this case, we have the living facts before our eyes." The Ottoman Empire virtually collapsed into the friendly arms of the great powers of Europe. And from that day until 1917, when the last of the sultans fled in terror from the capital, the Turk was styled the sick man of the East. Out of the ruins of the Ottoman Empire arose a new republic of Turkey. Constantinople is still occupied by Turks, but the new Turkey is vastly different from the old Ottoman Empire. She is taking her place today among the United Nations, but the empire of the sultans no longer exists. Verse 17. "And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone." Out of their mouths issued fire? Well, you see, it was the Ottoman Turk who largely introduced firearms into warfare. These old-time cavalry men fired their muskets from their hips as they rode along, and to the prophet it would appear as if smoke was issuing from the horses' mouths. The stories of the conquests by the Turks have filled volumes. Now Revelation 10:4 says, "But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants the prophets." According to Ephesians 3:3-6, the great mystery is the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is the only way of salvation, not only for Gentiles but also Jews. This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world. Matthew 24:14. Ever since the 19th century, we've been living in the time of the seventh trumpet. During the 19th century, the preaching of the gospel began with special power, and every day that power is increasing. You and I are living in the time when the mystery of God will be finished, and one day soon the sun will come up, and it will be the last day of the preaching of the gospel. Nobody knows just exactly when that will be, but you and I are living at the time of the final preaching of the gospel to all the world. When Jesus called his disciples with his invitation, "Follow me," it wasn't an easy road he was offering them. The Orthodox were against him. The scribes, Pharisees, and rulers were out to eliminate him. The cause looked like a losing one. He seemed to be inviting men to face death. He seemed to be asking, "Are you willing to sacrifice everything, security, safety, and comfort, possibly life, to follow me?" How is it with you? Are you willing to follow him? Shall we pray? Father in heaven, we thank you for the sure word of prophecy. We thank you that the mystery will soon be finished and the gospel will be preached in all the world. Bless each one of us that we may have a part in telling someone about Jesus, even if it means taking a risk. And we ask these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Well, behold, the bridegroom cometh. Lift up your voices, crying loud, then be ready. Be ready when the bridegroom cometh to meet him in the air. Then behold, the bridegroom cometh. Lift up your voices, crying loud, then be ready. Be ready when the bridegroom cometh to meet him in the air. Well, you think on your mind, the wheel's going to roll down the line of time, while the stars in the heaven will tumble and fall, just to meet you at the judgment bar of God. And behold, the bridegroom cometh. Lift up your voices, crying loud, then be ready. Be ready when the bridegroom cometh to meet him in the air.
The book of Revelation was given to us from God to show us the things which must shortly come to pass. As we've been showing you, the information given on this complete series of programs is now available in printed form as a gift to our Destiny viewers. Henry Feyerabend's new book, Revelation, verse by verse, is yours simply for the asking. This 200-page book, it explains the entire book of Revelation, yes, verse by verse. And now you can understand the book of Revelation clearly, like never before. We'd like to hear from you. Our toll-free number is 1-800-253-3000. Why not call right now while our operators are waiting to receive your call? Now, if you prefer to write, you can send your request to the address appearing on the screen. And when we hear from you one way or the other, we'll send you your copy of Revelation, verse by verse. Thank you for tuning in to today's Destiny telecast. Be sure to join us again next week at this same time.